Welcome to another Ball Blog video diary. I like to share the garden and write about the garden at all times of the year, not just when it's at its peak. And this is an interesting time. We've come through that peak in the last videos, that mass flowering of particularly the erythroniums with us, one of our favourite groups. And we're going into a sort of foliage phase, because here was this lovely old plant of a Paris, over 40 years old. But you can see the canopies coming out on the trees, the acers and the birches. Everything's really full, the foliage is coming out. And the garden's completely changing. It changes the whole feel and atmosphere in the garden. You know, metaphorically and actually physically. It changes it because you feel more enclosed with this canopy. As it thickens out, you'll feel like you really will get the feeling of walking under the canopy. But it also changes the atmosphere below, because if and when we get the warm sunshine, it's distinctly cooler in the shade under the trees, and that's good for the plants. But at ground level it's all changing as well. This bed here that I've shared with you a number of times through the season, where the anemone ranunculoides was recently, and all the erythroniums, the snowdrops before that, and the eranthus, and all the other plants that were flowering in here, are all kind of going down now. So we've got to find something to keep that space occupied. And the bluebells are not a bad thing to have. They're there, and there's lots of other things. I see some dicentra foliage in there that's seeded into there. Now, I really don't want dicentra running about in here. We've got plenty of it elsewhere, as we'll see as we walk round. So I do exercise some control and some selection. Here's some more of the anemone. This is not the ranunculoides, this is the pallida, but here we come here, this is Corydalis Craigton Purple, one of my hybrids. Two of the Corydalis, this group that I've released, Corydalis Craigton Blue, is not out yet, but this is Corydalis Craigton Purple, which is a Corydalis capitata seedling. And this is the original plant from which everything arose. We come round here. This is a sister seedling to it. In this area I discovered, I think, 5 seedlings. Well, there were probably more, but I spotted and then watched 5 different seedlings of this group and selected this as the best to name. It's a lovely plant. So we go around there, you can see over there the ovularias, the lovely yellow ovularia, and then there's podophyllums. There's all sorts. So as we move round, the troughs are just, plants are getting going in the troughs. Some of the troughs need some work on them. They're getting a bit mossy and needing a bit of refreshing tidying up. Very difficult to have a trough planting that works forever. Oh, I was going to go here. Let me just go here, because next to this horrible ghastly bare area under the feeders, tramped by the pigeons, which, touching wood, they're not around so much just at the moment, but there's some more of the podophyllums. But just the way the plants come out, allow the things to seed around. So we've got aquilegias. There's various aconites in there. I'm watching what goes, allowing things to seed. Now there is things, of course, we don't really want. This is one of the gallium. It's called various things. It's up here in Scotland, it's called sticky willies, because it sticks to you. It's got little hooks. I really don't want that, but it comes in with the birds and the other creatures that wander through the garden. The sticky seeds come in and get dropped and it gets spread, so we'll never get rid of it, but we can keep it controlled to a degree. So if we look up in there, we can see there's more ovularia, the different forms of ovularia, perfoliata, as well as grandiflora. And the other bare area there underneath the other feeders. But the ferns, brilliant plants. Not nearly enough ferns used in gardens. They really are great. But here you can see for a brief moment the horrible brown sort of dead looking stuff. The anemone ranunculoides just suddenly collapses around this time of year and disappears back underground, which shows you what a good plant it is, because it leaves all that space for something else. So there are some of the bluebells, a bit of wild garlic down there. But soon this will fill up with arisemas and other plants will come up. On the other side, by contrast, we've got the dicentras with trilliums coming up through them. And of course trilliums are very well evolved to do this, because if you think of a trillium that's got this long stem, rises up, and the whorl of leaves, 3 leaves at the top, and then the flowers rise up if they're like this, Trillium grandiflorum, and that's where all the growth is. So it puts its growth above this forest of foliage. More ferns and aquilegias. But you can see all there's lilies and plants coming up through there, so there's an awful lot of stuff to come. And of course the tree peonies, Peony lutea. This seeds around. These are self-seedlings. It puts itself everywhere, and we have to be selective. But this is an area that was gravel, completely gravel. And gradually over the years I've got fed up trying to keep the gravel clear, and I'm now happy to have plants in it. So more and more it's becoming, the gravel areas are extending just to be beds. And what we'll have is, we'll have the stepping stones of the paving slabs. Some areas I will clear. There's a section between the gravel that I cleared off yesterday, and there's just what I'm saying about the peony seeding everywhere. There's a peony seed sitting there waiting for the right conditions to sprout and grow. A little corner here where we took out a big cassiope that died back. It was half one side was all brown. This is a little grouping of some of my own cuttings, but also the colourful plants were a group of plants that I was given. Well, I wasn't given, Maggie was given by Ali and Sarah of Ard Fern Nurseries. So they're there to give her some colour there. So we get these little vignettes, even in a well extended, built up garden. We've got the odd bits where we can replant. The dactylorizas, we've had an awful lot more. We've lost an awful lot of dactylorizas this last probably 5 years to those horrible diseases that go around that turns the leaves black and the tubers black. But what I do is just wait and let the seedlings come up, and hopefully at some stage we'll get a range of plants that's, if not immune, at least very resistant to it. So we come round the anemone, cross pallida. This pale one always stays on a bit longer than the ranunculoides, and it's popping out in the wall there with the Haberlia rhodopensis. And there's ferns, and there's papaverus, and the one we used to call Mechanopsis cambrica, all coming out. So the pathway where all the erythroniums were in full flower a few weeks ago, they've all gone over and are now setting seed. There's just a few erythroniums of the later ones just hanging on. But you can see the garden if I pan up to the trees, how the leaves are coming out. We go up there, way above my head. The beautiful flowers, beautifully scented as well, Rhododendron fortunei. But just going around looking to see how things are coming, you know. So there are peonies, peonies of all sorts coming now. This is the Peony veitchii, the woodwardii form, and there's a seedling of it down in the path. Its seeds around as well. There's an occasional gap where we lost a little rhododendron that couldn't take the warmer, drier periods we're getting. One of the plants we lost in this weather. Further in I can see there's Doronicums. There's another Corydalis great in purple. There's trilliums, there's lilies. There's one of the peas. There's acer trees and pines. So the Erythronium americanum's gone down. As I say, it's a time of foliage, and the foliage has come up on the Jeffersonias, some of the later of the anemones. Different cultivars or selections of this is the double white. Nemorosa, that's anemone nemorosa forms. Oh wow, that's interesting. That's looking like a good seed set on this Narcissus cyclaminius. I've never had seed on it before. Yet to see if the capsule's full of seed, but that's looking very promising. That clump there has been there for many years from a single plant, and it's increased gradually. As the clump got bigger and bigger, but it never gave me seed. But now it has. This is why I often say I'm very reluctant to say a plant never sets seed, because then it will suddenly set seed. If you think about how these things are, that never say never, that might be very reluctant to set seed, or very occasionally. Here's some of the wee trilliums setting seed. I'll pan round for the ones on the face. This is Trillium hibbersoni. Nice capsules forming there. The weather has been good for them. There's down in the gap there the seedlings from last year. Trillium rivale is going to hopefully set seed as well. Oh, a wee rhododendron flowering. Down. This is a bed I'm slowly cutting back and trying to rejuvenate some of these rather ancient, if you look in, so-called dwarf rhododendrons that after 40 years really get quite big. Down to the habitat, this bed as well. Collapsing foliage, we're going through an in-between stage. A lot of the wee trilliums hopefully are setting seed. I can see seedling there on fat seed pods forming there on that same Erythronium sibiricum. And there's Erythronium caucasicum in there setting seeds as well. And in the troughs, that's some of the Ramondas. White Haberlias is a dandelion. In that trough I'll need to get that out. And just the habitats. Some of the bonsai at the pond. And then the island, different habitats. Just a rock that got covered in moss. And initially I sowed Pinguiculus. It was a Pinguicula island. And I loved that Pinguicula island, but it's evolving as other plants come in. The moss gets thicker, plants come in. And it's just how the nature of how plants come in and take a bare rock and cover it with lichen and mosses first, which allows the higher order plants to come in and colonise. So we've got, well, you can see the big Herb Robert type plant there, but there's orchids, dactylorizas, and I see an allium seeded there as well. It's another island, there's another trough that I put in to see what would appear, and I see a big fat orchid, and beyond that there's an old pot floated that's in there that's got my Salix, the lovely woolly silver Salix. I've forgotten its species name at the moment, but it's there and it's covered in dactylorizas, which is nice, and these are healthy, so that's a good sign. Here's another Corydalis Creighton purple, and just now in deep shade and in a drier spot. And the trilliums. More of the trilliums. Mostly flowers going over, past their best. Here we have some Fritillaria. This is Fritillaria affinis, the yellow form. The Gothenburg pink form of Trillium grandiflorum. And just the dicentra. As I fly through the dicentra with the sound effect coming from an aeroplane. It's lovely. And of course it's through that we get all the things like Fritillaria. This is Fritillaria camschatensis. We've got Veratrums, more trilliums. different podophyllums, the giant leaf podophyllums. There's about 3 or 4 different kinds of species of podophyllum in amongst this. Some more of these are going over, but these are some of the hybrids of the Rugelia rectums. I don't know what all they are, but they're garden hybrids. They appear and they vary. So they'll have Flexipes, erectum hybrids, or that group. The bulb bed, now it's full of herbaceous and woody subjects and diosporums. And so it's a lovely site. It's not got the flower power that we had earlier, but with all the greens and the textures and the foliage and the waves of new flowers we're seeing coming forward, and being relaxed about some of the wee wildlines, the ones that seed around. So the little geranium, the little wild geraniums, there's the pink one and the white one here, they're a bit smaller, the wee violas. You know, enjoy nature's free gifts. Don't be constantly fighting nature. Enjoy it, allow it in. Don't try and eradicate it completely, but accept that nature has been gardening for a lot longer than we have, and probably knows a lot better. So that's why nature's my teacher. So that's it. I've spoken on for long enough today. So thanks very much for joining me and being with me. And I'll leave you until next time. Happy gardening and enjoy as we head into summer. Bye.